Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. You at It's Tuesday, March 28th. This is Africa 54. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will begin the second leg of her Africa trip in Tanzania Wednesday as relations between the U.S. and the East African nation improve under President Samia Suluhu Hassan. The holy month of Ramadan is here, and in Somalia, the month-long observance is also a time for socializing, charitable giving, and spiritual reflection. And police in southern U.S. state of Tennessee say a shooter who killed 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian elementary school Monday had carried out surveillance before the attack. This and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris pledged to work with Africa to strengthen partnerships based on openness, inclusiveness, candor, shared interest, and mutual benefits. She spoke Tuesday in front of Black Star Gate in Accra, a monument built on the site where Ghana declared its independence from Britain in 1957. Harris also underlined deep gender disparities in Africa. The address comes on the second full day of her week-long trip to Africa and second day in Ghana. Her schedule Tuesday also includes a visit to Cape Coast Castle, a place where enslaved Africans were once loaded on ships headed to the Americas. Harris on Monday stressed that U.S. interests in African nations extend beyond competing with China. She spoke Monday at Jubilee House, the seat of Ghana's presidency, alongside Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo. Harris is the 5th top U.S. official to visit the continent this year. The U.S. Vice President travels from Ghana to Tanzania, with her final stop this week being in Zambia. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is challenging Africans to step up innovation and empowerment of women in order to play their full part in the future of the world. Harris addressed thousands of young Ghanaians in Accra Tuesday.
Women around the world must be able to fully participate in economic, political, and social life. And they must be able to participate equally, including in leadership roles. It is a key to maximizing global growth and opportunity. However, we see gender disparities around the world, including in the United States. Disparities we must all address. On the continent of Africa, we know.
Kamala told Ghanaians that Africa has a special significance for her personally as the first black vice president of the United States. The Vice President's visit to Tanzania this week comes as relations are improving under President Samia Suluhu Hassan. While late President John Magufuli pursued China-backed mega projects and cracked down on critics, Hassan is promising to let democracy flourish. Charles Kombe reports from Dar es Salaam.
Onesmo Lengurumwa has long fought for democracy and human rights in Tanzania. She says it was harder struggle under the rule of late President John Magufuli, who died 2 years ago from heart complications.
We faced a lot of challenges as an activist group. We received numerous letters from the authorities asking us to stop our work as human rights defenders. We were repeatedly questioned by the authorities, and our internal meetings were often disrupted without any specific reason.
Magufuli focused on large-scale, Chinese-backed infrastructure projects like the standard gauge railway. Beijing also built the Mwalimu Nyerere Leadership School, a Communist Party training school that critics say promotes the Chinese single-party ideology. After his death, then Vice President Samia Suluhu Hassan rose to power and has since then taken steps to advance democracy and expand diplomatic ties.
Every journey of development begins with a step, and that progress will come gradually, according to the laws and guidelines set for Tanzania. I promise you, my fellow countrymen, that reforms are there, and we will build a new nation, a nation of Tanzania with competitive politics and without violence.
The U.S. has taken note of President Hassan's actions to promote democracy and improve human rights. A 3-day visit to Tanzania by U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, starting on March 29th, is seen as an effort to strengthen ties.
Currently, the President is showing signs of wanting to build a democratic country. That is why the United States sees us as allies and believes we can work together. In this partnership we are speaking about, first and foremost, the U.S. will assist us in strengthening democracy, justice, and freedom in our country. Therefore, our President will be willing to look at all institutions related to democratic issues.
Despite challenges, Ole Ngurumo says he is hopeful Tanzania will continue to move further toward justice and democracy. Charles Kombe for VOA News in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
U.S. Women's History Month nears an end, and the Voice of America continues to highlight the contributions of women in history and contemporary society. VOA's Carol Castillo asked Palwasha Kakal, the Interim Director for Religion and Inclusive Societies at the U.S. Institute of Peace, about her work in Ghana, specifically understanding the role of Queen Mothers as local arbiters and peacekeepers in smaller communities, and how those lessons can be translated towards a national peace dialogue.
We are working on intergenerational, interreligious dialogue with Catholic Relief Services. There in Ghana, I was able to meet some of the religious leaders, tribal leaders, and youth that have been part of these dialogues, to talk to them and discuss with them some of their lessons learned, their findings, and their recommendations for ways forward on this dialogue. And what's really important to this work on connecting the youth and doing intergenerational dialogue with religious and traditional figures is that USIP's research has found that in communities where there are better relationships of trust between the youth and the elders in the community, those communities are more resilient to violence. Not just violent extremism, but just violence in general. And when violence does erupt, those communities are better able to bounce back and become more peaceful and stable. The candid nature that all of these people participated in the conversations with us, that they were able to just be honest about their experiences, and how many women were part of this conversation was also very important. We had youth who were women, we had religious leaders who are women, we had members of the local government who are women, and we had queen mothers. So to be able to go to Ghana and actually meet with these women and talk to them about their roles and how they engage with the youth and how they do interfaith dialogue, interreligious dialogue, intertribal dialogue, and their work in not only resolving local conflicts, but also building legitimacy and trust within the community to stop all kinds of disputes that might escalate into violence. We recognize that these women are key in building peace, and they are key in ways that aren't identified and aren't understood by the larger peace-building community, by including women who have this capability, authority, legitimacy, are known as being the moral authority and doing the peace-building work because of their moral authority and their faith, not because they're driven by political sentiments one way or the other, or because they are part of some sort of an armed group and have their hands dirty, but that they are doing this and they are recognized and have legitimacy from their community to build peace for the sake of the community. It's really connecting the dots and helping define that space as being more than just a local problem-solving space, but being a peace-building space.
That was Palwasha Kakal, the Interim Director for Religion and Inclusive Societies at the U.S. Institute of Peace, talking about her work in Ghana. African Union Commission head Musa Faki Mahamat is voicing, quote, deep concern after anti-government protests in Kenya turned violent. He is appealing for calm. Meanwhile, opposition leader Raila Odinga's convoy faced a hostile reception in Nairobi as it maneuvered through a congested informal settlement. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
As Raila Odinga's convoy moved through Nairobi's Kawangware informal settlement, tear gas and water cannons are fired, sending people scattering all over the place. Cars carrying journalists are also targeted. The demonstration is in defiance of a ban implemented by the authorities in response to protests last week against the government and high food prices. Odinga's supporters cheer and dance around the convoy, blowing plastic horns and chanting, "Ruto must go," in reference to President William Ruto. The demonstrators hurled stones at the police, who responded with tear gas and water cannons. Odinga is staging regular protests against the government, citing high food prices and accusing President William Ruto of cheating in the last election. Odinga is also condemning the looting of property belonging to former President Uhuru Kenyatta, believing that individuals hired by the government carried it out. More protests are expected, with another planned for Thursday. However, the government is denouncing the violence perpetuated during the demonstrations. Africa Union Commission head Musa Faki Mahamat on Tuesday voiced deep concern after anti-government protests in Kenya turned violent and appealed for calm. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Paul Rusesabagina, who was portrayed as a hero in the film Hotel Rwanda about the 1994 genocide, has arrived in Qatar after being released from prison in Rwanda last week, according to a Rwandan government spokesperson. Rusesabagina, a U.S. permanent resident, was sentenced in September 2021 to 25 years over his ties to a group opposed to Rwandan President Paul Kagame that has an armed wing. He was released Friday after his sentence was commuted following months of negotiations between Washington and Kigali. The holy month of Ramadan is underway and Muslims worldwide are fasting from dawn to dusk. In Somalia, the month-long observance is also a time for socializing, charitable giving, and spiritual reflection. Mohammed Mahmoud takes a look at how people in Mogadishu are observing Ramadan.
Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, is known for its bustling markets, colorful streets and vibrant culture. But as Ramadan approaches, the city takes on a different vibe. The streets are quieter during the day as most people are fasting and the markets are busy with shoppers getting their provisions for iftar. The midsection is particularly crowded as people rush to stock up on food for iftar, the evening meal that breaks their daily fast. We spoke to a customer who shared his thoughts on preparing for Ramadan.
I left this country when I was 5 years old, and I'm here back at my country, in my homeland, and I'm very thankful and I'm very happy here. I have no issues with anyone. I am very happy with the environment, and I feel very prideful of my country.
Street food vendors in Hamarwene district of Mogadishu are also doing brisk business. Customers line up to buy Somali delicacies including samosas, bajia and other street food items for iftar. The food is not only delicious but affordable, making it a popular choice for many people. Ramadan is a time for charitable giving, and in Mogadishu, young people are stepping up to help the needy. We witnessed volunteers distributing food items to the less fortunate in the streets. The volunteers explained why it's important to help those in need during Ramadan.
Allah sees how the population support each other. So the Somali community doesn't need any outside help. They just need the Somali community to support each other.
We spoke to young people in Mogadishu about how they're experiencing Ramadan. For many, it's a time to come together with friends and family to break bread and share stories. It's also a time to reflect on one's faith and values and to try to live a better life.
When we compare this security situation between this Ramadan and other Ramadans, is that the youth can freely meet in joints to break fast together. And before this, it was the biggest security challenge.
With its intricate Turkish architecture illuminated against the dark sky, the newest and biggest mosque in Mogadishu, famously known as Ali Jim Ali Mosque, is attracting thousands for the evening Taraweeh prayers. The mosque is not only a beautiful sight for the Muslims, but a place of gathering and worship. An important aspect of this holy month is the night of Laylatul Qadri. The night is considered to be the holiest night of the year in Islam and is believed to be the night when the first verses of the Holy Quran were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. Muslims spend this night in prayer and seek blessings from Allah. For many in Mogadishu, Ramadan is a time of reflection, prayers and charity. But with security restrictions in the city, residents are finding creative ways to connect with loved ones and also maintain their spiritual activities. From the markets to the mosques, the city is bustling with activities as the residents are observing the holy month. Mohammed Mahmoud for VOA News, Mogadishu.
Still to come, a U.S. school shooter killed 3 children and 3 adults. We'll have a report.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has embarked on a week-long trip to Africa. She is visiting Ghana, Tanzania and Zambia. We'll discuss the significance of her visit. We'll also look at the anti-homosexuality legislation passed by Uganda's parliament and the possible repercussions if the bill is signed into law by President Yoweri Museveni. Join me, Heidi Adams, for this discussion on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, Tunisian authorities have started cutting off drinking water taps at 19 areas of the capital and other cities in what appears to be a bid to reduce consumption. Tunisia is suffering through a major drought. Despite dire economic trouble, Egyptians are holding fast to the Ramadan tradition of charity termed zakat, with both donors and those in need pinning hopes on holiday generosity. One charity worker says meals have never been more vital. In Benin, singer Angelique Kidjo won one of Europe's top music awards Tuesday, winning Sweden's Polar Music Prize as one of the greatest singer-songwriters in international music. The 5-time Grammy winner sings her in her native Fon and Yoruba languages, as well as in French and English. Police in the southern U.S. state of Tennessee say a shooter who killed 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian elementary school Monday had carried out surveillance before the attack. VOA's Vincent McCory has more.
Nashville police released a school video showing the assailant blasting through glass doors with gunfire and roaming the halls, pointing a semi-automatic rifle. The motive for the attack at the Covenant School by a shooter police believe was a former student was not immediately known. Nashville's police chief told reporters Monday evening that the shooter, who was shot dead by police, had drawn a detailed map of the school, including potential entry points.
We have a manifesto, we have some writings that we're going over that pertain to this day, the actual incident. We have a map drawn out of how this was all going to take place. There's right now a theory that we may be able to talk about later, but it's not confirmed, and so we'll put that out as soon as we can.
Police say the shooter was armed with at least 2 semi-automatic rifles and a handgun. Calling the shooting a family's worst nightmare, President Joe Biden again urged Congress to pass legislation.
We have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation. And we have to do more to protect our schools so they aren't turned into prisons. You know, the shooter in this situation reportedly had 2 assault weapons and a pistol, 2 AK-47. So I call on Congress again to pass my assault weapons ban.
First Lady Jill Biden also spoke about the shooting Monday, telling a National League of Cities conference in Washington, our children deserve better. Nashville Mayor John Cooper expressed condolences to the families of the victims, adding that our entire city stands with you. Last year, a mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, left 21 people dead. Vincent McCory, VOA News.
Last year, a mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, killed 21 people. The Marburg virus is still ravaging the African continent, and cases of the virus are being reported in Tanzania. Mkamiti Kibayasi has more. Hello, Mkamiti.
Hi. Tanzania has confirmed its first ever cases of Marburg virus after conducting lab tests in the Kagera region. A total of 8 cases, including 5 deaths, are being reported according to World Health Organization. Joining me live via Skype is Dr. Elisha Osati, a lecturer and internal medicine specialist from Muhimbili National Hospital at Muhimbili University. Welcome, Dr. Elisha. According to WHO...
Thank you so much.
Thank you. According to WHO, the Marburg virus symptoms are similar to Ebola virus, including vomiting. How can you distinguish a Marburg patient from Ebola?
Thank you, Committee. It is very difficult to differentiate the two. Take into account that Marburg virus and Ebola are in the same family. Both in the same family of Pelaviviridae. So it is difficult to differentiate them because the patient will present with almost the same symptoms, but just the symptoms of Ebola are very serious, and you know, Ebola can cause death rapidly than Marburg, but the symptoms are the same, and transmission is the same. Just even the duration of when you caught the disease, from second day and 21 days, you'll get symptoms for Marburg, which is almost the same with Ebola. So it's very difficult to differentiate the two.
And what precautions should communities take as the virus develops in the country?
Yeah, the community, actually, as we've been telling community in Kagera, the community should take precautions. And the one is avoid handshaking. You know, in our African culture, we used to shake hands most of the time. So avoid handshaking and, you know, avoid overcrowding places, unnecessary meetings. But again, also using running water or sanitizers, cleaning our hands every time, and reporting any cases that we suspect to the health authorities, because there is a special phone numbers that you can call, and the healthcare workers, the team will come and rescue the patient. So it is very important for the community to recognize the symptoms, and then take action in making call so that the medical team arrive.
According to experts, there are no licensed or approved treatment for Marburg. How do you deal with the patients?
With the Marburg, it is fortunately that you know, when you treat the symptoms that patient is having will save the patients up to 80%. Up to 90% of them, because the patient will present with fever, so you have to give medication for fever. The patient will present with bleeding, so probably we need also to replace the blood. The patient will present with dehydration and electrolytes. They lose electrolytes, so we have to replace the electrolytes and IV fluids to the patients. So those supportive treatments are very important to save lives of people in Marburg.
Thank you so much, Dr. Osati. Dr. Elisha Osati is a lecturer and internal medicine specialist from Muhimbili National Hospital at Muhimbili University. Thanks, Mkamiti. Be sure to watch Africa 54's health reports every Tuesday right here. Now, members of the African diaspora in Shakopee, Minnesota, say they have been neglected by Amazon's sorting facility as the company plans to close, ending its lease on the building by the end of the year. Maxamoud Maskad spoke to immigrants from East Africa and has this report narrated by Vincent Makori.
Scores of Amazon workers who are from East Africa have staged several protests against a planned closure of Amazon's sorting facility in Shakopee, Minnesota. Busharu Dahir Yusuf, who immigrated to Minnesota from Somalia, has worked this warehouse for 1.5 years. Yusuf and dozens of our colleagues moved and rented houses near the Amazon facility. At first, she enjoyed packing boxes for delivery, but the decision to close the warehouse at the end of March worries her and our colleagues. The news, she says, is hard to accept.
Many of my colleagues have taken mortgages, bought cars to work here. We get a good check from here. We have moved here, but Amazon's decision was sudden, and it is difficult for us to accept.
In a statement sent to local media, Amazon said the warehouse is an older facility and its lease is expiring, prompting the decision to close it. The company says the 680 employees affected by the closure are being offered positions elsewhere, but Busharu Dahir Yusuf says she can't go to other faraway centers.
No, I can't go far. Spending 1 hour drive to get there and 1 hour back to get home, I can't do that. I have children. I don't want to waste time.
Workers in this facility and a nearby center held protests in 2018 and 2020 demanding better working conditions. Abdurrahman Musi is the executive director of the Award Center, a non-profit organization fighting for worker rights. Musa says the plan to close the facility is because workers are demanding better working conditions and opposing the company's policies.
We really see it as a retaliation the company is taking against the Somali workers who work here, who led the workers' advocacy rights. So I believe it was a retaliation by Amazon that if you argue or oppose our policy, you will lose your job. We are very sorry about this move.
But Amazon rejected the claim, saying the decision to close MSP5 was not a response to protests. Amazon has 10 sites in the Twin Cities, including 3 newer ones, and more than 60% of its workers in the region are East African. For Mahmoud Maskad in Shakopee, Minnesota, I'm Vincent Makori, VOA News.
And thank you for joining us on Africa 54. See you tomorrow.